Hey Trailblazers and Tarmac Tacklers, welcome back to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast. This is your one-stop shop for everything ultra, road and trail running.
And don't forget, we've got all your off-road adventures covered too.
And I'm your host, Nick Hancock, Head of Coaching here at Maximum Mileage, here to deliver pro advice, humour and inspiration for those of you tackling marathons and beyond.
And I'm Faye Johnson, your co-host. I am also a certified running coach, personal trainer and the resident mountain goat. Whether it's road running or ultra marathons, we've got the tips and tricks to get you through your training.
Exactly. Whether you are squeezing miles into a busy schedule or just dipping your toes into long distance running, we've got your back. So lace up, gear up and get ready for maximum mileage. Let's get into it. Hey Trailblazers and Tarmac Tacklers, welcome to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast. This is your one-stop shop for everything ultra, road and trail running for busy people. I am your host, Nick Hancock, a certified USCA ultra running coach and UK athletics coach in running fitness. I am here to answer your questions and provide a little bit of humour and inspiration for those tackling marathons and beyond. So whether you're squeezing miles into a busy schedule or just dipping your toes into long distance running, I have got your back. Prepare for some laughs, learning and a few colourful words. So lace up, gear up and get ready for maximum mileage. Let's get into it. On this week's episode, I answer my athletes' questions. They put me on the hot seat once a month and they throw questions at me, sometimes ahead of time, sometimes on the spot. And we talk about everything to do with running. Enjoy. So welcome everybody to the hot seat. Glad to be doing this just to take my mind off other stuff and have a bit of normality. I always enjoy these. So yeah, fire your questions at me. If you've got any new ones, I'm just going to get the ones that have been thrown at me already. So, first of all, because I do always start off with a stupid joke. How do you know if you're a pirate? You just are! Amazon, Alexa, she just comes out with some absolute crackers. Oh, a very cool thing just happened. I've just been published on Run Ultra website, talking about strength training. I did an article for them. They literally just put it on social media now, which is quite cool. Right, so Chris Chaplin, you're not going to sleep the night before the marathon anyway, so there's no point in asking for any tips. But any tips? Yeah, do you know what? It's always that thing. It's like, you know, we talk about sleep. It's such a factor when it comes to performance, sports performance in any shape or form, or just life performance. Really, you know, we've gotten to learn so much about sleep over these last couple of decades, really, and particularly this last decade. You know, sleep is almost more important than exercise. So yeah, you know, it's one of those things where, like, you know, sleep as much as you can, and actually we have learned that you can bank sleep. So if you know that you're going to not sleep very well the night before a race, try and get more sleep in the week leading up to it, because we can bank sleep, which is also another thing for like, you know, Chris, if you're going to end up doing any longer than the 50 mile you did the other day, you know, running through the night, there's very little evidence that, like, sleep deprivation training. In fact, the evidence actually goes completely against sleep deprivation training.
Sounds good.
Yeah, you know, a lot of ultra runners go, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to be running through the night, so I'm going to stay awake all day and all night, and then go running all night, and that's going to help me. And actually, it's detrimental to performance. It takes a really long time to recover from. So actually, the recommendation is to bank sleep. So one of my biggest recommendations, Chris Chaplin, and, you know, any of you before any race really, is to try and get as much sleep as you can in the week leading up to a race. Now, the fact that you're not running as much, you know, get another half an hour a day. You know, that might not sound like much, but if you do that over the course of a week, you bank yourself 3.5 hours worth of sleep. You know, get an extra hour a day, you've got yourself a whole night's worth of sleep, basically. So that night where you're not going to sleep that well, then yeah, you might have saved a little bit back. So that's one. on the actual night itself, try not to eat too late. And one of the things I've gotten like really into, I mean, I've got a cup of it here right now, is like sleepy teas. So they're usually like obviously like lavender. What is it? Is it arrowroot? No, not arrowroot. That's something else. But yeah, there's all sort of like sleepy teas. I swear by them now. I won't go to bed without one. So I actually do feel like if I forget to have one, which isn't very often, I don't sleep very well. So have one of those before you go to bed, and it'll help towards your hydration as well. If you don't normally take them, then I wouldn't suggest taking sleeping, herbal sleeping tablets the night before the race because you might feel a bit groggy after it. So I wouldn't recommend that. So have you heard of is it Phil Huberman, Dr. Huberman? He's got a podcast. Chris Evans, you're nodding your head. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, is that the Huberman Project? Or the Huber Labs, Mark?
Yeah, Huberman Labs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's done a really good podcast. I mean, I love listening to his podcasts anyway because they're super super sciencey, which I love. But he just puts all of the science into a really practical way. So Huberman. I think it's Phil Huberman. And there was one I listened to about this subject, sleep. And actually one of the biggest determining factors of how good a night's sleep we're going to have is what we do in the morning of the day that we're starting on. And two of those things were raising your body temperature as quick as possible. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is having a cold shower. Now, that might sound counterproductive, but if you have a cold shower, that forces your core body temperature, to raise. And then the other way around, when you go to bed, is to have a warm shower, and that'll cause your core body temperature to come down, which is what we want to do before we go to bed. So those two things. And then the other thing that you want to try and do in the morning, particularly now the mornings are getting lighter, is as soon as you wake up, get sunlight as quick as you can. And one of the things he says to do is obviously don't look at the sun, but look kind of in the general direction of the sun, because the sunlight getting into the back of our eyes, into the receptors in the back of the eyes, is one of the biggest determining factors of how well we're going to sleep the next night, is getting sunlight as quick as you can in the morning. So get up, make yourself a cup of coffee, go and stand on the patio and have it if it's not too freezing.
So I guess that's the kind of melatonin, serotonin cycles and trying to get those in sync.
Exactly. Okay. But yeah, I've listened to his podcast because it's
okay.
really interesting. He talks about some pretty good stuff. But yeah, and then the other thing is like just making sure like the room that you're in is nice and cool and it's not too warm and all that sort of stuff. But those are my tips. I think that's what I try and do, and I generally sleep really well. Lou is not on the call, but Lou hasn't been sleeping. You remember Lou, who joined the call on at the beginning of the year? Obviously, I've been coaching her for London as well, and she's not been sleeping very well recently. And one of the things we talked about is some of those things. And I showed her like my sleep stats are ridiculous. I pretty much get bang on 7.5 to 8 hours a night every night. And given everything I've got going on in my life, that's pretty fucking impressive. It's something I'm like really militant about. I've got to go to bed at 9:30 latest, and then no doubt one of the little men are knocking on the door at 5:30, 6 o'clock. So and that's what I do. I have sleepy tea. I make sure when I get up in the morning I have a cup of coffee, and I get sunlight as quick as I can. And he does say if not sunlight, then look at your phone, which probably most of us do anyway. First thing we do, we'll roll out of bed and looking on the phone. It's that blue light, that UV rays and all that kind of stuff. Just getting that that light as quick as you can, really.
Thank you.
Hopefully that helps.
Yep, thank you. Well, it might not. We'll find out.
But start practicing now. Like anything, practice.
Probably. So I'll do sleep loading as well as carb loading. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, and just generally eating well, and that sort of stuff as well. When you do your sessions, don't do them too late. That's why I don't like going to running club too often, because those hard sessions straight before bed are not that great for you. So yeah, stuff like that is, there's quite a lot to take in there. But yeah, a few like really easy things. Have those sleepy teas. Have your cold shower in the morning. Just do your normal shower, warm shower, and then just whip it onto freezing and just go. That's what I do. I mean, I can stand under there for ages now, but I do want to get an immersion tank at some point, or even just some ice in the bath. But so yeah, hopefully those tips help. James, you're on the call. You've asked. People talk about race day strategies, and at the moment, your only strategy is to remember to breathe. That's a good strategy, because if you don't breathe, you're probably going to collapse. And you've read about things like negative splits, positive splits. Are they good strategies? So a negative split is a great strategy, but it's important to kind of understand what a negative split is and how that's achieved and why it's quite hard to achieve because particularly for most amateur runners, because one of the things that we do when we turn up on race day is, you're all going to be tapered by the time you get to the start line of your races. You're going to be feeling super fresh. You're probably going to go out. Everybody goes bombing off way faster than they've been training. You get caught up in it, and you end up knocking out a minute mile PR at the start of the marathon. And because you're like, well, I feel super fresh. I'm going to run, 20 seconds per mile faster than I've been doing in training. And it's really important to remember not to do that. So my general advice on a race day strategy, so first of all, a negative split is the second half is faster than your first half. To achieve that, you do need to start off easy. And when I'm talking about easy, so let's say a 7-minute mile is your okay, that's quite quick for a lot of people. But let's say a 7:30-minute mile is your goal minute mile for the entire race. You probably want to start off your first mile something like 7:50. So you're like 20 seconds slower per mile, and then build into those first couple of miles and get yourself up to your race pace. And then hopefully, because you've saved a little bit back, not just in terms of pace, but because you're tapered, because you're fresher, you've saved a little bit of energy. When you get to those last 6, miles, 10K, which is where they say the race starts, because you've saved a bit back at the start and you haven't got caught up in everybody going off and going crazy, that will pay you back at the end of the race. And so it's really important to remember those first few miles, you do go out a little bit easier than you think you should. I really, really dial it back because it will pay you back in spades later on. What a lot of people do is they go bombing off. They set a 10K PB in the first 10K, 6 miles, thinking, right, I fucking banked myself 20 minutes there. And then they lose 40 minutes in the back end of the race because they're walking for half of it. What I did on my first marathon, went off way too fast. Went off at like sub-3 pace. I ended up 4:17. So to start off easy, a lot easier than you think. Like if it feels super easy, then it should do. That's how it should be for those first few miles, and that will pay you back when it comes to the end part of the race. Don't worry too much about negative splits. That is when we're starting to talk about I would say a bit more of an advanced strategy. Don't get caught up in that. Just run your race and make sure that you are starting off super easy and just get yourself into a place where you're like, right, I feel like I'm working now. Could I keep this up for the next 20 plus miles? And if the answer to that is, I don't reckon I could, then just dial it back a little bit. But we have been doing a lot of training. And I think I said this on the last call and even the call before that. It's really important when you get to race day that you let all of this training that you've been doing, all of the structure that I put to your plans, should take care of itself on race day. You shouldn't need to do too much thinking because actually that burns calories. It does. It burns calories. So trust your body, trust your training, trust your fueling. That's obviously going to be very, very important. Steve, you've asked a question about this, and I'll come on to that in a bit more detail. And you'll have a great race. It's really important that you just kind of get there on race day, And as long as you remember to take it easy in those first few miles, don't get caught up in everybody bombing off. The rest of it will take care of itself.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Those of you with a bit more of a specific time goal, like Steve, we're talking about just dipping under the 3 hour mark for you. You've got a pretty specific strategy to go with and a time to go with. So you still want to be starting off, making sure that you're not going off at like 6:30 pace when we know that you don't want to be going any quicker than sort of 6:48 really, to achieve that sub 3.
I think I'm just going to stick to the pacer. There's a pacer in my pen for the 3 hour pacer. So to make sure I don't get carried away, sort of stick with them and then see how I feel with sort of 10k left, I think is the.
Where was I going with that? And then and what if you the great thing with having a time goal is that when it does start to get hard, you know you're going to need to dig in. It's a little bit different if you haven't got a really specific time goal, but when you are going for something like that is so specific, especially over such a long period of time, you are going to find like the last 10k is going to hurt. It is going to be painful. Marathons are not supposed to be easy when you're running that fast. So, Chris, this goes for you as well, and probably you as well, Alison. I mean, you're a pretty quick runner, and you've just done a cracking half marathon. Once you get to those final miles, and you've got an eye on a pretty specific time, you're gonna, it is going to be like that. So it's worth just bearing that in mind that it is going to hurt, but it's only temporary, and it's going to be over in the next 40, 50, 60 minutes.
Right. So Nick, just a question on the pacing side of things. Now, obviously, I've not been running London roads on my training, but my understanding and recollection from other London races is GPS is a load of rubbish when it comes to kind of in the city. So are we looking at mile markers and things and cross-referencing a little band? Yeah.
That's a really good question, actually. So there's a few answers here, or a few parts to this answer. So the great thing with London is you're going to have a blue line on the floor.
Yeah.
Follow that fucking blue line as much as you can, like run on it as much as you can, because that is the exact distance that they've measured for the race. You're probably going to find that difficult in the beginning, but I mean, Alison's asked a question about this to me privately the other day. Start as high up your pen as you possibly can. If people are having to overtake you, don't worry about it. But don't start too far back. Get as far forward as you can, and then stick to that line as much as you can, so you're not weaving in and out of people, because you will add distance. It's quite surprising how much distance you add. Steve, I don't think, and Alison as well, I don't think you're going to have a line on the floor for Manchester.
I've not seen mention of one, no.
I don't think it's a big enough. I think they only do it with the majors and competition events.
Nick, with London last year, I can remember I lost GPS signal, didn't I? I thought when we was running, I thought I was close to the end and I still had 2 miles left. So I won't go to, and they have mile markers, every mile, kilometre markers, it's well marked.
Yeah. I guess my question was more along the lines of, how do I know that I'm at the pace that I want to be at? Because the GPS is probably going to be telling me all over the place as to what my speed is. Just because of that. Okay, cool.
We'll go on to that. We'll get into it. The other thing as well, so Steve and Alison, is without there being a line on the floor, is to run from corner to corner in a dead straight a line as you possibly can, because that's how I did put a post on this. In fact, I think I put it on twice on the group. So if you have a look on the group, and it's about like a Formula One driver. So let's say Formula One driver's going around a corner. They'll take the wide angle, and they'll kind of go around like that and clip the apex and then come out wide. You want to be going do like that to the next corner as straight as you can. I did that at Cambridge. I had that in my mind at Cambridge because it was quite twisty.
Yeah.
And I was like bang on 13:09 or something like that. And then I saw other people's GPS results for like 13.4, 13.5. It is quite surprising how much distance you can add. So I saw somebody do this at Newport actually, and I thought it was a pretty good trick. So instead of relying on the GPS to tell you how fast you're running, what you can do is turn the lap button off. Sorry, not the lap button. The lap, the lap thing goes off every mile or kilometer on your Garmin. Yeah.
Yeah, like the segment marker thing. Yeah.
Turn that off, and then every time you come to the mile marker or kilometer marker, whichever metric you're using, press the lap button. I was running with a guy in Newport, and I was like, that is really fucking smart, because he's like, well, because the GPS could be so dodgy and they've measured it perfectly most of the time. It's not all the time. I probably wouldn't do it for, in fact, mile 4 to 5 at Cambridge was not right. Did you find that, Chris?
Yeah, there was a short mile then a longer mile. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. But you'd think of something like London, given it's one of the majors. Yeah, what you can do is so every mile is do the lap button. I saw a guy doing it in Newport. I was like, that is pretty smart, because he was like, yes, that's me saying, right, I'm doing exactly what the course has been marked out at. Yeah, the only time you might get unstuck is like at Cambridge. I was like, oh, hang on a minute, I was at an 8-minute mile, and the next one was a 3-minute mile. So yeah, that's something you could do, just if you're really that worried about the GPS. Having said that, though, I didn't have anybody complain about it last year. Anybody. I mean, Kyle, he ran like a ridiculously metronomic London Marathon last year. I think he was like 7:21, and 7:20 was his slowest mile. His fastest mile, and 7:24 was his slowest mile. Like ridiculous. And he did it all off GPS. So
Good to know.
yeah, I don't recall any issues with it last year. Especially as the field starts to thin out as well. Maybe at the beginning when there's loads of people, but I think as the field starts to thin out, you should be all right.
Yeah, I'm hoping to find. I mean, I think there's 5-minute pace every 5-minute interval. There's a pacer at that kind of speed anyway, so I'll aim to tag onto one of those. But yeah, I'll have a play around with that trick for the markers as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, worth a shot. Steve, what was your question? Go on and ask it on here without me looking for it on the phone.
Which one was it? Which was the next one? I
I
need to
was
look at what I was asking. So I think it's recommendations on, particularly on warm up. So when you're sort of hanging around, going into the start pens, there's quite a lot of hanging around. It's probably about an hour from entering the start area to actually starting the run. So just kind of should be doing any little warm ups, what to kind of think about, not sit there getting anxious, burning loads of energy, getting nervous about running. So.
Yeah, so like you've had in some of your sessions, some of your foundation runs, those calf raises, those hops, all of that kind of stuff. Like I think I said was it you, Chris? I said about staying jittery. Yeah, just literally stay jittery. I wander around just flicking my arms, doing little skips, little hops, like nothing crazy. Just stay jittery. If you do that first mile easy enough, that can kind of constitute towards getting warmed up. Obviously, you don't want to be totally cold and then go into running, but if you stay a little bit jittery, if you've got some space to do a few strides, great. But yeah, all that hanging around at the beginning, walking to the start. By the time you get to the start line, you don't want to be doing like 2-mile warm up with a load of strides and stuff. You're just going to adding to your distance. You're going to end up doing an ultra.
Yeah.
Without even knowing it. So yeah, for a marathon, I tend to recommend and higher. I tend to recommend just not doing too much. Obviously, don't go off totally cold. You don't need to do some major warm up. Just stay jittery, stay focused. Just roll your arms around. Just flick your legs out. Just stay jittery. What to focus on when in the start pen? I think that's a really individual thing. I see some people they love to just fucking chat shit to the person next to them. And I'm like, don't fucking talk to me.
I know, that's what I'm like. Yeah. I don't need your nervous energy as well as mine, thank you.
No, so I I think that's a really personal thing. Certainly stay focused on the race. Visualization is a proven fantastic strategy. So visualize having a great race, visualize, finishing strong, visualize the time that you're finishing in. So visualize that 2:59 as you're running down the straight. Visualize a fast finish. Visualize grabbing a bottle. Just all of that kind of stuff can be quite helpful. But then when you actually get running, you almost kind of to a point want to zone out. Just let your legs do the talking. How long before the race to have breakfast and a final snack? I was reading something on this earlier actually. So on the breakfast bit, whatever it is you're having for breakfast, a couple of hours before, make sure you are hydrating from the moment you wake up. So, I'll still have my 2 or 3 coffees before a race because that's what I like to have. I'll top that up with a bit of water and perhaps some electrolytes as well. Particularly if it's a longer race, I'll have electrolytes. I'll also have electrolytes the day before as well. And then before the race, so what I was reading, and it totally makes sense, is whatever you kind of eat a couple of hours before, what you don't want to do is have a bit of a blood sugar dip as you get started. So have a gel just before you start, or half a banana, something that's just going to get your blood sugar, your glucose up a little bit. So you start off strong, and then just get into your normal fueling strategy.
Okay, cool. That's what I was going to do. So I found bananas have worked quite well in training. So this sort of banana, just not long before start.
Banana.
Yeah.
This is a great one. What to do if you start feeling a bit sick from gels later in the race? So hopefully, because you've been training with them and you've been doing some long runs at the pace you're going to be running, because there's getting used to having gels every 20, 30 minutes or whatever it is, and then there's getting used to having gels every 20, 30 minutes whilst running fast.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on there. When you're running easy and taking gels in, the amount of blood that's kind of going around your stomach is nowhere near as much as is less than. It's less when you're running faster because there's more blood kind of going around your muscles and everything.
Yeah.
So digestion can be a little bit harder for the stomach to do. And this has happened to me. It happened to me in Newport actually, which is this weekend. I felt rough as hell at mile 18. What did I do? So I kind of, it might sound a bit kind of voodoo and everything, but I kind of went into a bit of like a meditative sort of state, just try to really be calm. I've learned that these issues usually are temporary. So try and be calm, settle the mind down, don't panic, because that's when it can kind of get worse. And just think, right, okay, what is going on with me? So if I feel a bit sick because of the gels, I mean, if you've been practicing with them, you shouldn't get taste fatigue. So if that's sickness, it's probably because you're not hydrated enough. So get yourself to the next drink station, grab a bottle, make sure that you're taking a few more sips than you have been taking, which is what I did at Newport, and it got me back on track.
Yeah, that's what I've read actually, because that's one of the things, I guess, one thing I've noticed when I'm doing my long runs, because you've got a hydration vest, I do find I probably take on a bit more water with each gel towards the end of the race. And that makes sense that you need a bit more water in your system, I think, to be able to digest the gels. But it's in a race, I guess, just making sure that you're getting a good few slurps of water to start with, so you don't have that dehydration towards the end, and then that will just make it all a bit worse.
Yeah. Well, it's called a carbohydrate for a reason. We need that water to be able to absorb it into the muscle. So, but equally, don't overdo the hydration. Don't kind of
You're sloshing around in your stomach. It's the last thing you want.
Exactly. Yeah, you're going to end up with cramps and things like that in your stomach. So just be, if you are hydrated enough in the days leading up, and then on the morning, you should be fine. You should be okay. Just those little sips at the drink station should be absolutely enough. Yes, you're going to be dehydrated at the end. It's impossible to get enough in because You know, most of us sweat like at least 500, 700 mils per hour, at least.
Yeah, it's getting warmer again this weekend as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, crikey, I think I must have sweated 5 or 6, maybe 7 liters on Saturday. So it's impossible to replenish all of that.
Yeah.
So you are going to end up a little bit hydrated. Actually, I remember reading a study that there was a performance enhancement towards the end of a marathon with around 2 to 5% dehydration. Don't quite. I can't remember the kind of the mechanics around that, the biological processes around that. But yeah, dehydration is going to be fairly normal, and not total dehydration, but you're going to be pissing towards the end. Right, what else did you say? Oh yeah, and that's the other thing as well. Unless you are vomiting or having to dip into the portaloos, keep forcing the gels in. I did this on Saturday as well. I fucked up my hydration. It was warm. I didn't get enough water from the last aid station. I started feeling a bit sick, but I was just like, just keep getting those gels in you, keep getting them in you. You're not throwing up. You're not needing to poop on the side of the trail. Just keep getting them in you because you don't want to run out of energy and water and be dehydrated.
Yeah.
You keep getting it in you. So just forcing them in as much as you don't want to, get it in you.
Yeah.
And then any advice for the last 10K? Dig in. It ain't going to be easy. It never is. No matter how much practice you do, even the top marathon runners in the world will say, dig in. The last 10K is where the race starts. So just dig in, embrace the hurt.
Yeah, I think the main thing is knowing that you fueled well. That's what I've only done one road marathon before, and I did not fuel properly, so I just hit the wall badly, and it was just misery. But that's different to hurt and knowing you can continue hurting. It's when you hit that wall, it's just dreadful. So it's just making sure that doesn't happen.
I think one of the key things is that yes, it is going to hurt, and you're going to need to dig in, but relax. Just do a couple of checks on yourself. In fact, I have something called hack. So it's my marathon hack: head, arms, chest. So is my head up? Is my chest forward? And are my arms nice and relaxed? And if those 3 things are in check, no matter how much it hurts, you should be fine. The worst thing is you start, oh, this hurts, and you start slumping and slouching, and your form starts to deteriorate. That's going to make it worse. Keep your form good. All that good work that you've been doing. Nice and tall, balloon, pulling your head towards the ceiling. Make sure your form's good and you're relaxed. Yes, it's going to hurt, but that's really important in those last few miles.
Cool, thank you.
All right. Anybody got any other questions?
Yeah, Nick, I have one, please.
Yeah.
Just recently, when I've been doing my long runs on a Sunday, a couple of days later, I still feel fatigue, even when I'm training. I'm struggling to hit like the higher end of the intervals. Would you say? Well, I'd say I'm still hydrated. I'm still. Maybe I could eat a little bit more nutrition, but is that the main key, or is it? Do you generally feel tired from your long runs?
Sleep, hydration, nutrition are so important, like especially on a long run day. The long run is the hardest run of the week, and even when you take it easy, it's harder on the body than a session. You've got to be all over it on a long run day. Don't. I would even say, like, have an extra meal if you can. Not an extra Big Mac. All calories are not made the same. You want to be thinking about good high quality vegetables, whole grains. It's almost like somebody needs to write a cookbook about this stuff.
Totally.
There's a good one out at the moment, actually. It's those kind of, but it is those kind of meals in that book that I've written. That's the kind of stuff that I eat around my training, and it does. Okay, there are some things in there with Biscoff and stuff. Just to kind of keep things a little bit interesting, and there's that having things in moderation and balance. to take into consideration. But there's also some great stuff in there that you can eat. That I'm not trying to promote my book here. I'm trying to promote the type of recipes. And some of them I've given to you in the past, Nate. When I had that.
Yeah, I still eat quite a lot of them. To be fair, it's like that. Like I think I fuel well before the race. I'm having my bagels and stuff, jam, and everything's right. Well, till Sunday, last mile or something, I sort of crashed, but I forgot to take my last gel, and it was warm and hydration. But it's just like a day or so after, I still feel fatigued a little bit.
Right. It's also important that with training, we are looking to build fatigue. That is what training is.
Yeah.
Because without building that fatigue, your body doesn't what we call super compensation. So those cutback weeks I give you.
Yeah.
So you'll do a few weeks in a row, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the level of intensity that I've given you. You'll have that block followed up by a cutback week. That cutback week is your body getting rid of that as much of that fatigue as it possibly can and going, right, I need to get ready for the next thing that whatever this body I'm in is going to throw at me. And it does something called super compensation. That's how we improve. So we have to build up that fatigue to be able to improve. So it is normal to be a little bit fatigued. It's also important to just kind of be a little bit mindful about overtraining as well. So if that fatigue is like, I feel a little bit fatigued. Like, you shouldn't feel super fresh the next day after a long run. You shouldn't. That's not how it works. There should always be a little bit. That's why I'm always kind of in taper weeks. I always feel like, I don't know, I feel weird. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, this is weird. Stuff isn't happening anymore.
Yeah. Just feel like you're losing fitness or something when in taper week. I really was always like, I'm desperate to go for a long run.
But yeah, you shouldn't feel super fresh at all. But you also shouldn't feel that fatigue should not be fatigue dressed up as, overtraining dressed up as, well, I feel a bit fatigued. If you feel fucked, use my French, but that's a different matter. If you're like, oh my God, I feel so tired and I've got to go and run today, you need to let me know that. Like that's where our relationship. And I've been working with you for a year and a half, 2 years nearly.
Yeah, getting on for 2 years now in June.
Yeah, so we're I'm pretty in tune with what you can handle.
Yeah, I'm not that bad where I think, I'm like struggling to stay awake. I've got a training. I just feel it might be just because the training stepped up a bit, because it stepped up a little bit with this ultra coming up. It might just be just a little bit more tired.
But you've also been working quite a bit recently as well, so it is important that you're not just feeding back on your training, but also this is one of the things I really kind of pride myself in, is understanding all of you, and not just understanding your training, but what's going on in your lives, because that stuff really matters. If you've been pulled in and done a 14-hour night shift and not slept, that's important for me to kind of go, right, okay, how's that going to affect training? What do we need to do to kind of move things around to make sure that you can train? And train with quality. I know you don't like it, but missing a session is okay. If you've kind of worked the night before and you're like, I just don't fancy running today, that's a bit of a safeguarding mechanism of your body telling you that it actually needs rest. Rest is good.
Yeah.
So, do you want to ask any of your questions about the ultra on here? That's why everybody can hear the answers.
Yeah, I was just wondering, with aid stations and stuff, I presume you can get water. Do you get water at all the aid stations, and then do they have specific food or?
So you're doing the Adidas Terex Maverick races. The Maverick have Tailwind, No, they don't. They have precision hydration
Yeah, precision. Yeah.
and water. I don't think they put like a carb drink, like a sports drink out. I think it's
Right.
I think it's precision hydration, as in the electrolyte tablet stuff, and water. And then their aid stations are pretty good. I mean, their races are really good. The marking, the organisation, the race villages, the parking, the whole shebang. They're pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think what was on the. They'll have different fruits and things like that, but it's again, it's quite important not to go into
Yeah.
something new. So stick with your nutrition plan, which we'll go through as as we get to race day. I mean, what is it? It's 54k, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's going to be warm. It's going to be hilly. I think it's probably an idea to just find out what they have on their aid stations so that you can take that stuff out with you on your training runs. And then as part of your race day strategy, we'll kind of work out, like, when you get to the second aid station, have a cheese sandwich or, a banana or whatever it might be from the aid station. And then the rest of it, carry everything else on you.
Yeah. What else did I have? I've been watching a couple of things on YouTube and stuff, and people racing ultra marathons, and they're saying, like when you're going uphill, they say it's not to. Well, is it okay to like tab it out up an hill, straight like walk up an hill, or are we trying to run up every hill, or no?
Well, you're going to be racing, mate. You won't be running at all.
Right. Okay. Just so I understand, I didn't want to think, I've got to be pushing, running up every hill. Is it?
No. We'll go through all of that, but I would recommend you get some poles. Chris, have you got any?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah,
use?
I've got some. Sorry, I'll think of it. Lucky, I go.
You got Lecky.
Folding carbon poles.
Yeah.
Like really useful.
Oh yeah, I mean, poles are one of the things that I've learned not to try and save money on. Just get the fucking best ones you can. I can send you a couple of recommendations, Nate, but the ones that Chris just mentioned there, Lecky, Leki, they're the ones I use as well. Ultra Trail FX1, I think they're called. They're expensive. They're like 200 quid, but they're worth it. Harrier have got carbon ones now. I've seen a few people say they're good. I had their aluminium ones and I thought they were shit.
Yeah.
So I'd be a bit worried about them. But yeah, you're going to need to practice with those poles as well, because they're a whole technique in themselves. I can send you some resources to how to use those. But yeah, when it comes to hills, particularly, look, the hills that you're going to be doing, it's going to be mountains. They're not hills, they're mountains. Yeah, you're going to be power hiking. You could probably get away without poles, but you'd have to learn how to do the Euro hike, which is hands on the top of your thighs and a bit of, but I say we'll practice that as we get through your.
Man versus mountain poles thing.
What's that, Chris? Sorry.
Yeah, on man versus mountain, the poles were absolutely fantastic.
I used them on Saturday. Run where you can, walk where you need to. That's kind of, and you've got to think as well. Like, so I say this all the time. Our hearts, because everything we do with running is to do with our heart.
Yeah.
That's the kind of the governor, and they don't know. Our hearts don't know elevation. They don't know terrain. All they know is effort. And have you seen on Strava gap pace?
Yeah.
Do you know what that is, Nate?
No.
So it's called grade adjusted pace. On Training Peaks, there's something called NGP. That's normalized gradient pace.
Right.
Both the same thing. And it is an algorithm, so there's a little bit of margin for error. But that gap, grade adjusted pace on Strava, is what would your pace have been if it was flat?
Right.
So you could be going uphill on a mountain ultra, and your pace for that hill is 18 minutes per mile, which is basically walking pace, right?
Yeah.
But on the grade adjusted pace, it could be 6:45 minutes per
Yeah.
mile.
Right, okay, yeah.
Again, it's all about that effort level. Most of particularly a mountain ultra, is about keeping your effort at the right sort of level. Forget about pace. It's too much of a varying. Yeah. So if you feel like you're pushing too hard uphill, then you probably are.
Right, okay, yeah, brilliant. Clears a few things up.
Anything else? Anybody else? Cool. So, Steve, Alison, both Manchester this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm hoping to go over to Newport to see James, and Marcus do that. What's the weather looking like? Actually, that was going to be something I was going to talk about.
It's not looking too bad. It's going to be potentially a bit of drizzle, light winds, which will be perfect for Manchester. It's not looking so good for the week afterwards in London, Chris. It's about 20 degrees and sun at the minute.
No, I'm hoping that's vastly exaggerated. I see a high of 17 and low of 9 for that's for here, for Pembrokeshire, but yeah, for London, it'll be high.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
No,
Sunday
I'm not
down here is like perfect weather, but Manchester will be cooler. So
Yeah, London's 19.
so
0% chance of rain.
Chris, if you can, as soon as you get back from Pembrokeshire, or even if you've got one there now in Pembrokeshire, get in a sauna for 20 to 30 minutes every day in the lead up to the race. It's
Okay.
a really good way to get heat acclimated. And actually, whether it's going to be warm weather or not, if anybody can access a sauna often, it's a really good way to improve your performance. There's some good studies around it. Saunas, very good. Or just like, as warm as you can get into bath.
You can stick the fan heater on in the log cabin.
Get a treadmill in there.
That's
No.
it.
So being in a sauna, yes, but training in the heat is not a bad way to get heat acclimated. But when you're in a taper, all you're doing by training and then adding heat on top is you're exacerbating the training stress. So not a good thing to do. That whole running in 4 jumpers in the sun stuff, no good. Get in a sauna. It's a fairly low stress way of getting heat acclimated. And actually, it's quite relaxing for some people. So if you can do that, that's quite useful. Same for you as well, Sharon G. Get in the sauna.
Yes, I'm hoping that the fact that I'm from Taiwan, it will help me to feel okay in that weather.
Yeah.
I haven't been back for half a year now, so maybe the heat will hit me.
When do you go?
I normally go back to Taiwan in July or August, where it's like 34 degrees.
I mean, before the race next week, get in a sauna.
Oh, right, yeah. So I'll try to get to a gym that I can.
Or a really nice warm bath every day for like 20 minutes.
Okay.
You keep topping up the hot water. That's another good way.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, everybody. So marathon season well and truly got kicked off week before anyway, but yeah, we're right in the thick of it now. So good luck on the weekend, Steve and Alison, and then following weekend, Chris and Shangju and everybody else. There's loads. I'm gonna have a right busy next week. So and thank you all very much for coming on today and taking my mind off things. It's been super helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's another lap done on the Maximum Mileage Running podcast. Thank you for joining me and my athletes and my guests on this wild ride through the world of ultra, road and trail running. And remember, whether it's a mountain trail or the local road, every mile you conquer makes you stronger. Keep pushing, keep laughing, and of course, keep swearing when that hill just seems a little too steep. If you enjoyed today's journey, don't forget to subscribe and leave me a nice review, please. Your feedback does help me go that extra mile. Until next time, this is your host, Nick Hancock, reminding you to make every mile count. Run long, run strong, and run with maximum mileage. Catch you on the next run. And that's another lap done on the Maximum Mileage Running podcast. Thank you for joining me and my athletes and my guests on this wild ride through the world of ultra, road and trail running. And remember, whether it's a mountain trail or the local road, every mile you conquer makes you stronger. Keep pushing, keep laughing, and of course, keep swearing when that hill just seems a little too steep. If you enjoyed today's journey, don't forget to subscribe and leave me a nice review, please. Your feedback does help me go that extra mile. Until next time, this is your host, Nick Hancock, reminding you to make every mile count. Run long, run strong, and run with maximum mileage. Catch you on the next run.